Hello, everyone. Welcome to Revelation Now podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the visual side of Revelation, the power of vision, being moved by what we see. We've been talking about the sound side, the hearing side, the worship concert in Revelation 4 and 5. The thunder, the lightning, the voices, the trumpets. And there's this other side. We've got the hearing, but then we had the visual. And what helped me to just a few weeks ago, actually, there's the verse there in Revelation that talks about reading it aloud, that it was meant to be read aloud. Of all the books meant to be read aloud, the pastor is supposed to read it aloud to the 7 churches. And you would think, well, that's the most wild book to read aloud. So I went ahead and did it actually in one sitting. I forget how long it took. I just started reading it out loud to hear it. And I put a little drama in my voice, and boy, did it not come alive. And I thought, wow, is this how the churches experienced Revelation? Because you begin to see it. The words begin to create the visual in front of me. Like, was this God's way of doing a movie back in the day? So you could see, we've got the boys along here. We've got Tyler and Jason.
Hello.
And we could tie this in definitely to the art side of life. It's part of it. Where music comes from, where does the visual side come from? And that's effective too. I know hearing's powerful, but which would be more powerful, you think?
Right.
The seeing or the hearing?
Yeah, you hear that a lot. People pose the question, if you had to choose, would you rather lose your hearing or lose your sight?
Which one would be the...
That's tough.
It is tough.
The one. And then, I like chapter 1 of Revelation, reading aloud, I began to see a cathedral. You know, one of these awesome cathedrals, like, began to show up in front of me, just reading aloud. It's like words. It's like a picture book, but the words are making the picture. Revelation.
That's interesting because the command is to read it out loud. So there's that sound part of it, but the point is for that
this
experience.
This one's different. Yeah, it builds
for you to
images.
see, but see inside.
Mind's eye.
Like, it's almost like, I love visual portrayals of scripture and stuff, but it almost sometimes messes it up.
You can.
Because then you got this other thing in your mind, when really, if you just read it, it could put a whole other picture in your mind. You know, it's free to. Yeah. You're free to interpret.
In your mind.
It wasn't, you know, like I was looking for pictures, visuals of Revelation, and some of them are just so not good. I don't know exactly why it's hard for those to draw or to come up with. It's what surprised me was how realistic it is in reading it aloud. It wasn't, you know, far-fetched. Like, some will say, I can't understand Revelation, it's just so out there, the descriptions. But when I read it, it started feeling like I saw John, like, right in the midst of something, like a reporter being filmed.
And you were talking about that, like the weatherman.
Yeah, the weatherman outside. And then you can see in the cloud right there, and you can just, wind, I can hardly stand still for the wind. And they're trying to describe what they're seeing, really. And John's doing that. He's saying it's like this or it's like that. And like the moon, that's blood. You hear that a lot. The sun's darkened and the moon's blood. And I realized, oh, he's talking about just like fire and smoke, and it's creating this haze. And I showed a visual of New York when the Canadian fire's coming down.
Right.
It looks red.
Yeah.
There has this, the whole atmosphere is red in color.
And that's powerful imagery.
Yeah, blood.
That hits you, and you immediately start thinking apocalypse.
Yeah.
That even hit us down here in Southern Ohio.
Yeah, they even used, in the New York Times, one of them, they even used the word apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
Apocalyptic red or something.
We're in Southwest Ohio, and we could see it.
Yeah.
I looked down, I got out one morning and looked down my street. It looked like Cormac McCarthy's The Road or something. It just was bizarre. Like, it just looked like this apocalyptic, like, end of the world scenario in our neighborhood.
That's the visuals. He's seeing war, the results of war, but also he's seeing the results of, like we were talking about, disasters. Disasters. And then I started thinking, we've had these before. We can relate to these things. And I was able to relate to it and able to see. And of course, you're trying to get to the heart of it. You know, why is God showing all of this? Because he wants you to see it like, look, here's where things are going to end up. But of course, we believe there's an answer. And that's where what was exciting to me also is seeing this side of Jesus and not getting thrown off by the horse terminology. You know, someone showing up on a horse, and I just went for it. I just started picturing it. And of course, I ended up Lord of the Rings-ish.
Yeah.
Because that's what he knew. He was living in a Lord of the Rings era with the horses and the armies and the swords. And then to be able to picture it, it was really neat, like the coronation. And I realized he was describing Daniel 7. Chapter 1 of Revelation is Daniel 7. It's the coronation where Christ is exalted. There was some sort of, I think it was literally some sort of ceremony that took place. And he got to see it and to write it. And Daniel 7 is, he says, Daniel said, I was watching in the night visions. So he got to see it too. That's interesting. John saw it hundreds of years later. Is it on tape already? What's up with that? I was watching in the night visions this coronation of Christ, and with the clouds of the sky, one like a son of man was approaching. Jesus would talk about that in the third person when the Son of Man comes.
Like
wink, wink.
Somebody else.
Yeah. He went up to the Ancient of Days and was escorted before him. What is that in Star Wars at the end of the one?
With the medals?
Where they have the medals ceremony. It has that feel to it.
Yeah.
To him was giving ruling authority, honor, and power. All peoples, nations, and language groups were serving him. His authority is eternal and will not pass away. His kingdom will not be destroyed. So you have the kingdom language. And then it was easier the visual really helped me because it led me to see the progression of it to chapter 19. And then you had the same visual, the white horse, and here he comes. It's very save the day. Israel's getting ready to go down. The nations have come. This Antichrist charismatic fella has finally convinced everyone they're the problem and has brought them, and here he comes to save the day. But more than anything, I think it was just rolling with the visual part, the power of vision.
It's interesting because John's having a vision, but it's coming through his understanding.
It's coming through his understanding.
That's how he's conveying it.
Like, what if he really was seeing our day and time? What if was he seeing tanks, jets? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Helicopters.
It's either that or he's just. It's the pattern. It's the story.
Yeah.
That's the point, and it's coming through his understanding of the universe.
Right.
So it's horses, it's bugs and
locusts.
certainly, it's all that terminology.
Gargoyles,
That's how
dragons.
That's how Jesus taught
castles.
In his parables. He took what was happening around them and what they knew and familiar with farming.
I know you could see it different ways. He's either seeing something and describing it the best he can.
There's that part of it.
Or it's a word coming through him. It's a story coming through him, and his psyche is interpreting it that way. The same with Daniel. Yeah. Because he's quoting too much. It's all
they're obviously
already happening.
Yeah, but they're obviously, what if they both were just given the same film to watch? The same vision.
Story.
Yes.
It's like
both of them were before them. God's saying, "Here, see this.
It reminds
Watch
me of
this and write it down."
Yeah, like what you were talking about, like reading the story, and you start to visualize.
I got caught up in it.
You did. I feel like that. To me, that's what happened to them. It came up through them. They're really seeing something, but it's coming through their.
And what's important is like, I think there's been small wars fought in the church over literal or not.
Yeah.
What to take literal and what not to take literal. Mm-hmm. And I found myself not being in any way bothered by the horse this time.
Yeah,
Sometimes you get bothered by it. Like, really? Is he coming back on a horse? Really? So people will mock and make fun of it.
Puts
like,
the kibosh.
Really? Like, you're saying Jesus coming back on a horse? You're going to be in the sky on a horse?
Yeah.
And they laugh, but that wasn't. I realized.
Does he have a literal sword?
Let's just say this:
for a tongue?
Could be, actually. I wouldn't put it past God that he really does show up on this crazy, supernatural, spiritual organic horse flying deal, just like we see in the hero God stories and things like that. Even so, still. What I realized is, like, it talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Are they really showing up on a horse? Probably not. Mm-hmm. It's actually just saying something. What I did realize is it's still literal. Something is literally going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't let the horse throw you.
Yeah. All of it's like that.
He's really showing up. Yeah. He might not be on a horse. Don't let it throw you. But don't you dare try to get away from him actually coming.
Yeah,
like it's less important.
That's where that in the clouds, that little sneaky line got me this time around in studying Revelation. Mm-hmm. In the clouds.
It's interesting.
Not in fantasy.
Because it's
using fantasy.
It's figurative, but it's pointing at an even more literal thing. It's almost like sometimes literal, you're not seeing it.
Yeah. It's like
denying its truth.
God tried to get across to Peter to literally accept Gentiles into the fold. So what does he do? He shows
crazy vision,
a crazy visual of a net
the best
coming down with lobsters in it, and
snakes
and pigs, and
what do you say?
Kill and eat.
Get
Peter.
up, slaughter and eat.
That's not literal, but literally Cornelius and his household were real.
Yeah. Right.
They really did come to Jesus through his preaching.
Thank goodness for us, they were real.
So that's the power of vision.
Lobsters.
And
us pigs.
And I think too, and you look back at the church, they didn't have the screens. They didn't have the PowerPoints.
They did though. They
had the words to do it though.
That's why the visual arts were so big. They weren't literate. A lot of people weren't literate. That's how they understood the Bible. Yeah. That's why the paintings in cathedrals are so important.
To this day, I still am affected by a Bible we had at our house, an illustrated Bible. When I was 5, 6, 7, a biggie, big one. And they're all black and white, the old, and pictures of hell, illustrations of hell. And,
yeah,
man,
I'm
still scared of it today.
One of my,
that's 50 years later, and I'm still scared of that visual.
That's effective visual.
One of my favorite things we have at our house is I picked up in the '90s on tour with the band I was in. We went to Howard Finster's place in Georgia.
Yes.
And amazing folk artist, just amazing story. I forget what age, very young age. He said he saw Jesus the reflection of like an oil puddle when he was changing the chain on his bike, something like that. And he said, make art. So he did the rest of his life. And so we have it's in our bedroom of all places. We have this amazing painting of hell, and it's people just like writhing in these flames, just like sea of flames. And it says, there's no Coca-Cola in hell.
What a visual.
Yeah. Like there's no,
Could I just have
Can't
a
have your-
drop
you
of
can't have your
Coke on my
delicious-
tongue?
delicious beverage, Coca-Cola.
Well, we've come full circle, really, already. Where does this come from?
But even
The music, the art. It has to have an eternal
it's
source.
funny you guys are talking about that, because visually we have the Action Bible at our house. It's like the comic book version. Guess where the kids always want to go? What's the coolest part?
Revelation part?
Absolutely. And that's what's frustrating. Sometimes the church tries to make it practical, make it all make sense, or throw it out. And I'm like, no, this is so mysterious and rich, and that's what's
and don't get me wrong,
cool
when I was
about
saying
it. Like children intuitively know, wow, this is wild stuff here. Like the imagery, we're talking about images. The images are so important.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
That's what I just let it ride.
Yeah, right.
And when I say I started to relate to it, with the sky in New York, like it was how he was explaining it. I got caught up in it.
That's
like
what
if he
entered
just
your
said,
mind.
like if he just said, the sky was red because of fire.
Right. It's so more poetic.
Saying
it's blood.
the blood moon was as the blood.
Yeah.
That's
and he's
that was
riffing
the
on
whole-
like he's riffing on tons of Old Testament biblical allusions.
they knew
That
it
talk
for
about
sure.
that. Also, like politics of the day language, like when something would be shaken and they were referred to as
I think about the blood flowing up to the horse's bridle. What's that, like 5 feet river of blood?
Yeah, and starting from where to where, like the whole earth or just
But
that valley?
you have
or
to
that-
understand, though, too, speaking of kingdom, there really were slaughters.
Yeah. Real
Oh my
battlefields.
My favorite.
Really were in his day.
Yeah.
Slaughters.
So-
Well, not
of-
even back then. You're talking World War I and II. Those some of those battles.
I started looking
just
at that.
Unreal.
Like, with-
you're
Yeah.
running over dead bodies to go.
And he was
fight.
talking about, like, he kept coming back to the seas, like 1/3 of the sea, fish died. And finally, like in the 7 bowls, they're all dead.
Yeah.
It's like you get a chance just with 1/3 and then but finally in the very end, it's like they're all dead now.
Oh, you know
Every
what's funny about
single
that?
thing in the
s-
seas.
We took
dead.
a vacation to Florida one year.
Oh, you've seen that, Red?
Yes, and
It's gross.
all the stuff that goes into a vacation. We drove with all the kids just to get there, and it was what they call red tide.
Right.
And red tide is this thing where the coral releases some kind of stuff. It kills a bunch of the fish, and so you can't breathe.
Yeah.
It makes you cough. So we show up, and first thing out of my mouth, this looks like the apocalypse. The whole beach was covered in dead fish and dead snakes. The air quality was all messed up.
For whatever the reason, the visual helped me. It made it real to me. It did the opposite. Like if they just go through it too fast, it becomes not real.
Or too literal.
Yeah.
Well, and that kingdom.
Somehow it balanced out for me when I read it aloud. It took 20 minutes or more. I forget. Literally 1 through 22.
Well, and that kingdom stuff you're talking about too, and the bloodshed and everything. They knew that from their own history, as well.
Yeah.
From Israel. One of my favorite things, I did just a little bit of correspondence from Gordon Conwell, and there was this book called Casket Empty by Carol Kaminsky, and it stands for Creation, Abraham, Sinai, Kings, Exile, Temple, and then empty is the empty graves, all pointing to Jesus. But it came with this graph of the kings of Israel, both north and south.
Yeah.
And it just had this little, talking about visual, it had this little marker on each king. When they would succeed the other king, there was either a chair for a throne, that meant that they inherited the chair, like family, passed down. There was one sword, which meant that that new king killed the previous king. Or there were two swords, which meant that they killed the king and their entire family and bloodline. And it's across this timeline. It's literally chair, sword, 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 chair, sword, 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 chair, sword, 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 sword.
Like it sounds like what's that show?
It's crazy.
I didn't see it.
It's Game of Thrones.
Yeah, my joke I use all the time from the pulpit is like so much of the Bible makes Game of Thrones look like Sesame Street.
Oh, it is all of it. All of it.
I mean, it is. And so he's riffing on that as well. It's that kingdom language. That stuff they knew. It was part of their history, their story.
But we act like we progressed maybe past that. No way.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No.
And it's a trajectory that's leading to what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see
19 is dipped in blood robe. Just some wild visuals there. He's trying to portray somebody coming on the scene like nobody's business with that in 19. And he's not kidding when he comes. Like, that's that
can't
to
miss
rule
it.
with an iron. What is that?
Scepter?
Scepter of iron. Yeah. It's not a little.
That's
not a little. Not a little. What do you call it?
That's fascinating
a
because
switch
isn't
that would break a little piece of wood.
The Balaam prophecy, isn't that talking about the iron scepter?
Yeah, that's so
Which
Return
is such a
of
wild
the King.
Story. Oh my gosh!
And that what got me started was reading aloud and seeing the coronation. Like, oh, everything is leading. Why did he become king? You know, it was a deputizing. What was that? No, Brother Barthol. He became bona fide.
Bona fide.
Bona fide.
Got a job at
like
the Woolsworth.
He really did have to come to own the position. He actually earned it.
Yeah.
His wasn't a grace. He actually earned. Like, there was a position there as a man. Son of God, Son of Man, because we kept saying Son of Man, Son of Man. There's something in connection.
Representative.
There's going to be the Adam who doesn't blow it.
Yeah.
The Adam who doesn't blow it. He's going to really be what they were king and queen. It had to have been Adam and Eve. They had to have been set up in a kingdom way.
Yeah.
You know, because he says, let's give them dominion. Let them have dominion.
Rule and reign.
Yeah. And they were supposed to just make sure everything stayed on the up and up. Even the language is to protect and to keep the junk out. And the disqualification, and of course, several thousand years later, here comes to do it again. But it's the maker getting involved.
That's
Reminds me of Toy Maker's Dream.
The earning it part. It's kind of the irony and beauty of the cross is, the sign above him is he's the king.
He's the king.
Here's the king.
Here it is.
Meant to mock.
It was a mocking thing, but it was literally him earning it. Like in Revelation, who is worthy to do it.
He keeps saying that.
It only hit. They keep coming back to only this dude who
worthy
actually
is
did
the
it all.
Lamb who was slain.
Yeah.
And it's all talking about how he did earn it. And that's why, sweating drops of blood, because people don't understand what he really was resisting. He was resisting showing off.
Yeah, I love that.
He was resisting. All right.
I love that too, Jason.
I'm going to show you who's who here.
Yeah, it says, no, say, right that he said he was king.
Yeah.
He wouldn't do it. Yeah. Nope, it's written.
And he says, he said, pretty much, it is what it is.
Let's go. Yep.
It is what it is.
Tired of you punks.
No. He said he was a king. Let's make him your king.
But then that's part of it that threw them off is the revelation part. Like we keep saying, it's referencing all this prophecy in the Old Testament. they're saying he's not fulfilling any of this.
That's not what I talked about, that Orthodox
It
fella.
totally makes sense to me that they would say,
I have so much empathy.
why, even after his resurrection, they're like, okay, are you taking it now?
Yeah, that fella I met in Israel, he started that conversation with Darren and I. He wanted to explain to us why Jesus was not the Messiah.
Yeah.
He went in this big, long talk about it. And so we're like, so there's no Messiah? Do you believe? Oh, man. He's like, are you kidding? He's coming.
Yeah.
And Darren and I are like, yeah, he is. It's going to be the same one. At one point it was funny because all three of us were like, yeah, he's coming.
Yeah. It's not.
We all got caught up in it.
It's not lamb.
And he said he was, but I realized what caught me off guard is this guy's not kidding. Yeah. He really believes a Jewish Messiah is going to come. And he emphasized politically too. In the political sense, he's coming. He's going to organize and put this together, and we're going to be saved from any of this deal again. Never again are we going to be taken out. Like, I guess he's referencing the Holocaust and things like that. But I realized too, now as Christians, I wish we understood
exile,
as we understood this as well. He was living his life in expectation of it.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah.
Are we living our lives in expectation of the game-changing event that's coming? But the visual, we're talking the power of seeing. That's really the power of vision. Make it plain. What is that in Habakkuk? Talks about the power of vision, to write it out so people can see it. So people can see it. It's so closely related.
It's so fascinating. The it's words that you see.
Yeah.
You see the words. Like, there's always that cliche, the books are better than the movies.
Oh, I do that all the time.
See, yeah.
I have to watch that.
Because there's a truth
true.
there.
There is.
There's the Bible's in word form. It didn't show up in picture books. But it's meant to make pictures.
But it does. And it does it in a powerful way.
Yeah.
But so Jesus there was really a ceremony of some sort. I mean, he got this caught up in it and he got to see. Remember he talks about even in Acts how he was escorted out of here. And then the angel showed up and said, listen, he's coming back the same way. No big deal. No big deal. He's just going to show up the same way in the clouds and come back down.
That's part of the I really do think there's a time discrepancy.
Yeah, there's
going
space
on.
time.
Like they would say, why are you still standing there? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, like this is happening right now.
Like, oh, he's coming right back.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's that. I know a minister by the name of Keith Moore talks about that a lot. The time discrepancy. Like to God, it really. He could watch a 300-year movie. Sit down with popcorn and watch a movie that's 300 years long. Like to us, that's a normal time frame. But yeah, I encourage you out there who would be listening, if you ever get a chance, it's a little long to do, but even if it's just a few chapters, try reading. I don't know exactly which translation.
What did you read?
I think it was the NET that I did. But I have to watch that too because NET has little notes, and I get tempted to.
You get the.
So I made sure, maybe it was just New King. I forget what it was, but I remember just pausing at the very end. And even so, come Lord Jesus. Like, wow, I got the sentiment of it, but it felt film-ish. Like I watched it, and I kept feeling like John, like he got really swept up in this business of seeing. It wasn't, maybe it was like a lucid dream, but it wasn't, it was definitely inspired. I mean, it wasn't just, he didn't fall asleep and dream in a natural sense. Something, I mean, because of the order of it as well, and how it's also applied in the Old Testament too. I don't think people realize how much is connected.
Well, that's the part where I'm like, it's it's so dead on, like parts of Isaiah and Daniel
and Ezekiel.
It's
like
not. He's not just pulling stuff out of the
And
hat
like
here.
it's almost
And there's
it's
some-
almost word.
there's
Yeah,
some
exactly.
Enoch in
He's
Visual for visual.
Yeah, he's clearly referencing this.
That's why we
this
said
and
when we
this.
started, were they both shown the same film, Daniel, and then because they described the same event. When I got to connect Daniel with chapter 1, and it's throughout as well, but they're telling the same story.
Mhm.
That's what's pretty amazing.
I think too. Also, a thing with visual things is memory. So you see something, you get triggered. So also, John could be seeing something. We talked about how he's trying the best he can to explain it, describe it. So he sees this thing, and the first thing that comes to mind is
is that.
Ezekiel.
This is that.
First
yeah.
thing that comes to mind is Isaiah.
True. That's a really good point.
And Paul does it all the time too.
Yeah,
when he's
he does.
explaining Jesus, like,
He
oh,
even
of
It's
course, this is that.
It's
Duh.
the whole tradition of the scriptures. They
Yeah.
keep referencing
Oh,
backwards.
Yeah,
this is what Ezekiel saw.
That's why when I taught
Yeah.
on Revelations, I went to Genesis because this is where it
Al-
starts.
always go to Genesis.
They're all referencing this.
with the
That's where
serpent.
Babylon
Crushed
starts.
his
That's
head.
where the serpent starts. Crushed his head.
1 through
That's
11
all
is-
right there.
the spirit of the world. It's
It
all
really
in there.
is. It
yeah.
really-
Yeah.
I
So, and they were so immersed in their Hebrew Bible and their scriptures, and they just knew it and lived it and breathed it. And like you said, even they couldn't read it, most of them.
Yeah.
but
Paul
just
even
they heard
said-
it.
yeah.
They heard it. It was in them. It was part of their.
He even said it's written somewhere.
I love it.
Yeah,
I use
like
that.
He
I
forgot,
use that all the time.
He forgot the exact book.
It's in
and
there somewhere.
He's like, it's written somewhere.
trust me, guys.
It's in there. Where it's at.
Because it was just part and parcel of their existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think. I guess
Steeped in it, you know.
Yeah, they definitely were using words of visuals at that time.
But also, like you said, Jeff, also what's being revealed to John is, probably very much the same, at least sort of thing, where that's why they're describing
It's the same
this-
story,
and that's why John's thinking of that thing, like, oh, this is that.
that's where I got.
This is
That's
that.
what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
the pattern is set.
It's beautiful.
It's already set, and it keeps happening.
Yeah.
It's all. That's why, like, when I first heard, like, oh, Revelation already happened, I'm like, no, that's what are you talking? That's
And-
sacrilege. I'm like, actually, it has.
No, and I think that's-
and it keeps happening,
And I think
it
that's
will happen.
and I think that's why it's okay, and we also have to be a little cautious about reading our own world into the visual stuff.
Yeah.
Like it totally makes sense to think of that sort of thing, but that's because we're wired how we are.
yeah.
And we see what we see, and our experiences are what our experiences are. But like you said, it's kind of like it's always happening.
Yeah.
It's always happening. So being read aloud, like you just said, Jeff, it's being read aloud to these churches, right?
Yes, that's what it says
So
right there in the first.
They're
chapter.
not seeing tanks and airplanes and stuff like that. They don't exist.
But
They're
how-
seeing their world,
How many apocalypse have happened?
and before their time, yeah.
It just keeps happening.
And think about all the history of all the exile and all the takeovers and all the wars and all the brutality
And
and even
kingdoms.
their current situation with Rome,
yeah. Yeah.
where they're
Yeah.
looking for this kick butt Messiah
Mhm.
to come and let's level this place at the
And
ground.
he gave them that in Revelation.
Yeah, exactly.
He gave them.
You finally
that
get it.
Messiah.
That's why I think Revelation is so important.
Yeah.
Like, you can't not have that because he finally does
he gives them that.
what we've been waiting for.
Even right there in the
He
kind of
gives
the not
them
the
that.
middle, but early on, the martyr's prayer. How much longer, Lord?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much longer?
Again, yeah, that they were already in that. I mean, for quite a while when Rome came in and the whole thing.
And I love it.
They were already saying that. Lord, how
We've
long?
talked
Lord,
about
how
it
long?
before. Paul, Peter, all these guys, they thought he was coming at any moment, 2,000 years ago. And we're right now at the church.
Because he did.
We're reading right now, one chapter a day. We're in 1 Corinthians, and I was reading a commentary where a lot of the stuff that this guy was saying, that a lot of stuff that Paul was talking about, where it's funny. He kind of predicts. He says, "Now this isn't the Lord. This is me.
Yeah.
Like this is me. This is my thought." But it was all in context of, let's just kind of live life as we are, because he's coming back like any moment anyway. It's it's not.
Behold, I show
let's
you
not-
a secret. We shall not all.
Let's
sleep.
not get too hung up on this stuff, because any moment now
Yeah.
he could be returning.
You don't have time
They
for that.
really thought and felt and lived that way,
Yeah.
and we're told to as well.
because they saw him. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
They saw him.
That would make it even more. I mean,
they saw the one, all the prophecies of the white horse and the champion and the sword,
right?
And the taking over and ruling and righteousness, and they saw the one who's going to fulfill it. Even Paul says, I shouldn't have seen him, but I did. Remember, he talks about that in Corinthians.
That's one of the best visuals. What's he like? He says not born.
He says all the ones who saw him.
Listen,
the Peter saw
for
him
those
first,
that are
and the disciples saw him. Then over 500 saw him. Then see one born out of time.
Untimely.
Untimely.
But the actual Greek is an abortion. The actual Greek is an aborted fetus. A fetus. Sorry.
Like it was.
Like not a premature, not supposed to happen.
To be born yet, yeah.
Like something that was pulled out of the womb.
Like
that's the actual Greek.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Like,
yeah, he said I should.
Wasn't supposed to.
He really feels like he didn't deserve. He was totally used as an example of God's mercy.
Yeah,
like I
really was
persecuting the church. I even had people killed. I was totally against this Jesus, and yet look at me now.
He kind of had to.
He even said that God used me as he used Paul as, if this guy can come to salvation, you can. If anybody can come to salvation, listen. If this guy did, you can too. But that's it. But they saw him, and that's why they felt like, well, this he's real.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that? You're talking about visuals. That road to Damascus. When the visual of Jesus,
it's power,
it's immediate power. Jesus, it's not like, hey, Paul, I really love you. He immediately says, Lord, okay.
Oh yeah,
I give up.
Knocks him to the ground.
Yeah, this is the one. this is the power.
And Jesus really doesn't answer that question. Like it was almost like rhetorical. Of course.
Which part?
Where he says, "Are you Lord?" He doesn't even really answer. It's like, of course. What do you mean? Am I Lord?
I love that involuntary reaction kind of thing. Just at the glory and the weight and the power of it.
Yeah.
I have this
what
little
would
book.
You have me do?
This little book that has little snippets of N.T. Wright stuff. It's a daily devotional. And he talks about how a lot of the worship and revelation is that kind of almost involuntary, spontaneous response to the power. And he likens it because he's British. And he says, it's like when you are at a moving performance, music or whatever, and you just stand your feet, a standing ovation at the end. And he says, which, by the way, they're very sparing with in the UK. They don't do a lot of standing ovations like we do. But you just involuntarily spring to your feet.
That's like
that's the worship scene in Revelation 4 and 5.
Where they're talking about such and such movie got 15 minute standing ovation.
Yeah, well,
it's who would stand there for
15 minutes?
Yeah, I read one. It was close to that.
Yeah, I got excited.
I know they do the 5 minutes. Even 5 minutes is forever.
Well, I got excited because a movie I was interested in, Asteroid City, got like a 8-minute thing. But then when I dug deeper, it was like, it's pretty normal over there at Canada.
It's a
thing.
Tradition.
It's a thing they do.
Yeah,
they do like these 10 or 15-minute standing ovation things.
But that even has a king. That has a
kingdom. But he was saying in Revelation 4 and 5, that's just like an involuntary response. Like this just...
tag you're it. I was talking about that too.
Power.
It's like a wave
of God.
But I was thinking about...
Reminds me of Kenneth Hagin. He fell down too when he saw Jesus.
The visual and the visual in the space, the way they used to make cathedrals. You're talking about kingdoms and otherworldly...
Yeah, that feel.
They were literally trying to do that. Make a space, and you feel it. That's why people
feel
still
the throne.
They still visit those places and feel. I remember being in high school and going to New York, and me and my friends went into St. Patrick's, I think it is, down there. And we weren't used to cathedrals at all.
The super Gothic one?
Yeah, and we were just immediately, like you said, involuntary, quiet, like, what is this? Like
reverence.
Reverence. Exactly.
Fear.
It brought that out of you. Just the building, the visual of it, was so impactful. It was amazing.
The power of vision. And that is a part of Revelation. Trying to picture it. And you see that in film, you see it in art, paintings.
And you see it
trying
you
to
see it in creation.
picture the other side. And again, I think it comes back to that quote you were talking about with Lewis. Why? Why are we even something? There must be something over there. That we're like, there's something in us trying to paint that, trying to see it, trying to hear it, trying to experience it.
Mm-hmm. I'll say a little bit of that quote. It's from C.S. Lewis. I forget which book that's from. Oh, The Weight of Glory. It's the books or the music in which we thought the beauty was located will betray us if we trust to them. It was not in them, it only came through them. And what came through them was longing. These things, the beauty, the memory of our own past, are good images of what we really desire. But if they are mistaken for the thing itself, they turn into dumb idols, breaking the hearts of their worshippers. For they are not the thing itself. They are only the scent of a flower we have not found.
Right.
The echo of a true we have not heard. Wow. News of a country we have never visited.
That's
man.
That's revelation.
That's so good.
The news.
Because especially the heavenly scenes where he's trying to describe it. And that's where I started seeing the cathedral.
Wow.
It's like chapter 1's coronation. It's cathedral. And then a longing, then it created a longing in me to see it.
Yeah.
And that's been part of since Reggie got us back outside. Something since we're talking it out these past few episodes here, I can't put my finger on it. When I'm out walking in nature. And there is so much in Ohio, people have no idea. Hocking Hills, it's not just Hocking Hills, it's right around, if you know what you're looking for, these trails are incredible. But I said to Reggie a little bit ago, out in nature and going, the visual side of it. Like I'll just stop and it'll catch me. The trees, looking through the trees and that type of deal. That's what I said the other day. I haven't felt like this since I was a kid. It was that thing what you experienced when you were a kid. Remember the wonder?
You're supposed to.
Years. That's that other side. That's that longing. Reason we long for it because it was here at one point. Before you're talking about in Genesis. Wow, the visual. Here's as we go, Revelation 1. This is Revelation 1 through 3. The revelation of Jesus Messiah, which God gave him to show his servants things which must take place. It says shortly, but actually the idea is suddenly. It's going to hit. Boom. Jesus talked about that a lot. It's going to suddenly take place. And he sent and signified it by his angel to his servant John, who bore witness to the word of God and to the testimony of Jesus Messiah, to all things that he saw, to all the things that he saw. Now here's the part. Blessed is he who reads. And it means in the Greek it's aloud. Blessed is he who reads aloud, and those who hear the words aloud of this prophecy and keep those things which are written in it, for the time is near. I got to experience a little bit of that blessing. So I challenge you, ever get a chance, the visual, the power side of the Word of God, it's right there in Revelation. The coronation that leads up to the chapter 19, especially the revealing of the Lord. Bless y'all. We'll see you again, man. This is great. Enjoyed talking. Thank you guys.
Peace.
For it. See y'all.